I think it's fair to say that of the 10 races we've had on the Baku City Street Circuit, we've had 10 different races. Like, usually you find some that are similar, usually you find some that are different, but let's talk about this year's one. And I think we have to start off with the winner, right? It was a Grand Slam, wasn't it? It was a Grand Slam for Max Verstappen. Led every lap, pole position, fastest lap. Simply lovely. And I don't think there was much more to say aside from that, really, because just look at how he was driving, look at the form he had, look at the performances he delivered. I did say in my pre-race predictions, I wouldn't have been surprised if he'd won. I didn't expect it to play out the way it did, but I was not surprised nonetheless. Regardless, right behind him, because we need to talk about the rest of the podium as well, George Russell, I say right behind, 15 seconds behind, not feeling 100% as a driver, but he managed to deliver second place. One of those does nothing, gets a good finish kind of things. Third place was the smooth operator. His first points since Canada. That sounds wild to say, but it is the case. His first points since Canada, and he gets it with Williams' first podium since... Oh, I should have had this one to mind, shouldn't I? I should have had this fact all the way to hand. Isn't it since George Russell? Isn't it the first podium since George Russell? It's just... what a wonderful job by Carlos Sainz. Elsewhere, let's talk about the rest of the top 10. Andrea Kimi Antonelli gets 4th. One of his better drives this season. He was just consistent, he was dependable, he made some good moves, and he climbed up the order. The top V-carb was Liam Lawson. He got a top 5. That is really well done. I mean, I know we're going to be talking about Isaac Hadjar's podium until well after his career has ended, but Lawson did deliver really well, and he held on from a charging Yuki Tsunoda. And Tsunoda, I think this has been his best weekend with Red Bull. He was competitive, he showed good pace. He wasn't quite on Verstappen's level. Yes, there were 33 seconds between him at the end, but that 33 seconds doesn't tell you how competitive he's been throughout the race, especially considering that for most of the tail end of that race, he had to hold off a charging Lando Norris. We'll get to Norris properly in a bit when we talk about McLaren. But he was being charged down at the end by Lewis Hamilton, who tried to swap back with Charles Leclerc after they'd already switched positions earlier on, and failed. Gave Leclerc 9th, with Hadjar rounding out the top 10. And it was really that top 10 apart from the rest of the field. Because, well, there was 30 seconds between Isaac Hadjar and then 11th place Gabriel Bortoleto. But in that group, you have one Williams, one McLaren, then both Mercs, both V-Carbs, and both Ferraris. Just not in that order. Elsewhere, let's talk about the rest of the finishers. Gabriel Bortoleto in 11th. He managed to be 6 attempts clear of Ollie Behrman. Behrman, who got points here when he was doing his stand-in duties in the Haas last season for Kevin Magnussen, when Kevin Magnussen got a race ban. I mean, it was a good performance. He did do well with it, but at the same time, it was just traffic. The way the traffic worked out, and also there was a bit of a pace deficit, especially for the Saubers. It just dropped them further down. Well done to Albon, who I think did actually cross the line in 11th, for still being able to be 13th at the end of it all. He got a penalty, quite rightly deserved, for hitting Franco Colapinto. And was I unsurprised that when a British driver hit an Argentine driver, Twitter went nuts? I wasn't. And when I opened Twitter and looked up Albon, I can't actually repeat the first thing that I saw, but it was in Spanish from a Colapinto fan. Ocon got to 14th, which was good considering the first lap clash with Hülkenberg, who was 16th. Again, some of the things to do with traffic as well. Alonso in 15th, you did feel for him. He jumped the start because he followed Oscar Piastri jumping the start. But yeah, he was convincingly clear of Lance Stroll. And then as for the Alpines, I don't think it was necessarily all decided by Colapinto being hit by Albon. but it certainly played a part in Gasly beating Colapinto. The Alpines were the only cars that finished a lap down in the end. But let's talk McLaren for a moment. I glossed over Lando Norris early on. We'll get to him again in a moment. We'll talk Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri, I'm keeping driver ratings for every F1 driver this season. Piastri has been head and shoulders above the rest in my estimations. But he gets a 0 from me on this one. Crashed in qualifying. Granted, it was in Q3. But then, at the start of the race, he jumps the start, locks up, and hits a wall a couple of corners on from where he shunted it in quali. I think they were saying on the broadcast yesterday, on the Sky broadcast, it's the first weekend in which Piastri has crashed of his own accord and had to have a car repaired due to write-off. And he's done it twice. Maybe it's just a Baku thing, but it could have been a race that he would have seen his advantage absolutely annihilated over Lando Norris in the Drivers' Championship. This is the perfect opportunity, right? When Lando had his DNF in Zandvoort, Oscar went on and won. But no, it was Max Verstappen that capitalised. We'll get to the point standings in a bit. But Lando gained 6 points. That's less than he would have gained if it was a McLaren 1-2. And that brings us on to Lando. What was going on with him this weekend? I don't think the McLaren was the fastest car. I think some of the other cars, especially where, say, Red Bull has a good Monza spec, were going to do better anyways. But it just fell apart. It just completely fell apart. He got out-qualified by Tsunoda. He then got passed on lap 1 by Leclerc, right? Or was it even a V-carb? Was it Lawson or Hadjar? And yeah, just trotted around in the tail end of the points. There was one point, I mean, I called it early on. I was talking to somebody, I said, he's not even getting a top 5 today, let alone a podium. And in the end, he gets, 6 points on the day. I think we need to talk about it in a wider context of McLaren, though. They can take it as a bogey weekend, but they kind of need to hit the ground running again in Singapore. Because, they are all but guaranteed to win the title in Singapore next time out. I think it does actually require a Ferrari 1-2. They only needed 9 more points than Ferrari this weekend to be able to clinch the manufacturer's crown. They scored the same amount of points. They both scored 6 points. And that is going to be something where they're going to want to know what's gone on there. Because part of it was just a complete fluke weekend. Piastri crashing twice. And Lando being caught out with his qualifying laps by the red flags, as he was when he got knocked out in Q1 last year, mind you. But yeah, they're not going to accept it, are they? They need to learn lessons from it, especially considering the Baku is on the calendar now until 2030, so they've got at least 5 more races there. You can't afford to have a bogey track in the championship battle, because it means that someone like Max Verstappen could just charge up through the field and dominate a weekend, and now the points gap has closed up massively. And it is really a massive dent. It is 25 points. Granted, Piastri still has 69 points over Verstappen, and he still has 25 points over Lando Norris. But it's not the best in terms of a cushion. I think it is still to the same degree as what I said before this race, which was Verstappen could, in theory, lead Piastri home with Piastri in third pretty much every race from here to the end of the season. And granted, there are sprints in there. If Piastri beat Verstappen in the sprints, Piastri would still be champion. But you don't want it to be necessarily down to that, especially when you're so far clear in the team standings. It's very concerning for just an isolated weekend, but it has had lots of knock-ons in the championships. For instance, in 4th place, Russell's on 212. He's only 43 behind Verstappen. He's actually closer to Verstappen than Verstappen is to Lando Norris. Despite all of what I've just said there. Leclerc is still, 57 points behind? No, 47, I think, points behind Russell. And 44 points clear of car 44, his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton's 43 points clear of Andrea Antonelli, with Albon 8 points further back. Top 10 is rounded out by Hadjar, who's gained a point, he's on 39. And then Hulkenberg still in 10th on 37. Carlos Sainz has been the big jumper in terms of the field here. He's actually jumped up to 12th place. He's just cleared Liam Lawson. He's now on 31 points. He's 1 point behind Lance Stroll, 6 points behind Nico Hulkenberg. Lawson is now level with Alonso in points in the standings. Ocon is still 2 points behind Alonso, but he's in 15th now. Tsunoda has tied with Gasly. They're both on 20. And they're both 2 clear of Bortoletto, who's still on 18. Behrman is still on 16. And then it's all the way down to 0 for Colapinto and Doohan. Meanwhile, in the team standings, McLaren have 623 to Merck's 290. Because, yeah, Merck managed to jump Ferrari in all of this. So, it is all but bolted on for Singapore. They just need to not have another weekend like they've just had. Red Bull are closing up, though. Especially now that you've got Tsunoda with a big point score this weekend. Red Bull, mostly still Verstappen's points, are only 18 points behind Mercedes. They're only 14 behind Ferrari. They're very much clear of Williams. It's 272 for Red Bull, 101 for Williams, who are now 29 points clear of VCarb, 10 points clear further of Aston Martin, 7 more from Sauber, 11 more from Haas. And Haas are 24 points clear of Alpine, who are, like I mentioned, on 20 points from Pierre Gasly. Either way, though, folks, those are my thoughts, feelings, and observations. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching and joining. And until next time, it's bye for now.